going to push like the Dickens now to make international more important with us. Every team will go to 18-2, and eliminate one of the preseason games. And every team every year will play one game overseas. And part of the reason is so we can continue to grow the cap and keep our labor happy.
I mean, a number of issues I take with that statement, notwithstanding the keep our labor happy. I mean, they are human beings, right? They're not chattel out in the back of your fields.
Did you ever hear the Tex Schramm line? Tex Schramm, the old Cowboys president, back in like the 80s, walked into a negotiation with Gene Upshaw and the union, and basically said to them, "Y'all boys don't understand. We're the ranchers and you're the cattle." And so that ethos
still exists. Yeah. And listen, listen, billionaires are billionaires for a reason, guys. It's because they know how to maximize profits. Mm-hmm. That's why they're able to buy NFL teams. But the idea that in a season where we saw Patrick Mahomes, Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Joe Burrow, how many injuries have we seen in the NFL as they continue to shorten the preseason and maximize the regular season and maximize profits to the detriment of the players? And I think to some level, the detriment to the product. This is greed at the highest level. I have a huge issue with it. Personally, I think they should play fewer games. They never will. And the fact now that you're going to make guys go, if you're coming from the West Coast and you're going to Germany, that's like a 12-hour flight. Now you're going to have to do that once a year. It is bananas that the players' union would go for this.
So my issue, and this isn't a Robert Kraft issue specifically, but it's the talking point that he used that I've heard so many of them use, which is 18-2 versus 17-3, which is basically presuming that the 20 games, right, preseason and regular season, are all the same. And so all they're doing is the fans are solid by moving one game from the preseason to the regular season, which is so disingenuous because
guys don't play in the preseason.
The players who make the roster generally aren't going to play very much in the preseason, and they're so heavily managed through camp and everything else because the season is such a grind. And I think you can see like the fatigue on teams at the end of the year now. And it's the extra game, 17 games. It's the extra playoff game, which means 14 teams. 14 teams are in the playoffs now, and the bye is gone. So, like, you have, it's more likely that a team that gets to the Super Bowl is going to have to play 4 games to get there. And, on top of that, you've got, you played on Wednesday, like on Christmas a few years ago. You're putting teams in situations where they got to play multiple Thursday games over the course of the year, all the midweek stuff. It's just, don't lie to us. Like, it is what it is. You're chasing money. Negotiate with with the players, but don't act like this is some sort of genius plan. This is you trying to find ways to put more money in everybody's pocket.
Right, and keeping their players happy would include giving them a bigger piece of the pie, too. I would imagine you do have to, if you're going to go to 18 games, and this has been inevitable. This is not like breaking news necessarily that Robert Kraft shared with us today, but you have to do things to help the players sustain. So to me, that's a second buy. Like, you should, now we're talking about extending the season even further, but like, you got to do something. You can't just keep piling games onto their plate and saying, good luck with that, week 5 bye, and then going from week 6 through week 19, and then maybe the playoffs after that without a bye now, if you're one of the best teams in the league. That doesn't make any sense to me. The 18th game thing, it's happening. But the question is, how do you make it manageable, more manageable at least, for the players?
And if I'm the players, I don't know that they're going to have the strength or the wherewithal to do this. The union doesn't even have an executive director right now, but they need to march in there and say players need to be able to get to free agency after 3 years, because now what you're looking at is a young player will have to play 8 more games than a guy who did 10 years ago did to get to free agency. So, I think you have to get to free agency after 3 games. I think you have to loosen the reins on franchise tags. I think that they've got to do things to lessen the control over workforce, and the owners haven't been willing to do that in the past.
Listen, it all comes down to money. how much more can a player benefit from that one extra game? I guess that's what I would
he doesn't.
would want to know. That, and that's,
well,
that's
they
me
do monetarily, they do. Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. Like, how much more monetarily? And is it only your quarterback, your top receiver, your top, like your say your 5 top guys, and then the rest of them are still just like sacrificing their bodies for pennies? I know it's not pennies, but pennies.
Well, the reality is, the way the owners look at it is every game is a piece of real estate that they can sell to the networks, right? And so, like, how do we create more broadcast windows? How do we increase the value on each one of those pieces of real estate? So in 2021, they went from having 256 pieces of real estate to 272 pieces of real estate. And what they're trying to do now is go to 288 pieces of real estate. They went from 11 pieces of postseason real estate to 13 pieces of real estate. And so their ability to sell all those pieces of real estate allows them to make more money. And as they monetize it, a percentage of that goes to the players, and the players do benefit from that. And I think a huge part of it, and this is what Robert said that was correct, and I wish he had illustrated this a little bit more. The reality is, like, and he said, like, well, we've already got 93 of the top 100 broadcasts. The reality is they realized a long time ago that they are sort of almost at the peak of how much they can grow up. So they have to start growing out, and that means adding inventory. And adding inventory meant going back to LA with not 1, but 2 teams. It meant going to 17 games. It meant adding playoff games.
It's going abroad.
And it means going to Europe.
And I hate that as an addition to the increase in the schedule. Like, you could grow it by just going international and trying to figure that out and creating more international games and trying to get those fan bases to generate more revenue for your league. But now you're doing that on top of making the schedule a more difficult schedule and increasing travel. It's just, to me, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble in terms of the product, especially by the time the season gets to its end.
There's a reason why, like, there's such limits on the amount of games played in football. There's a reason why there's only 1 game a week.
Because it is like a car crash on your body.